And I've said this before in another video, but I didn't use this as my main thesis. Damn. Take for the moment a truth. That's it. A single truth. The New York Times comes out with a bombshell article saying that the Navy has been studying UFOs, or that the U.S. government has been studying UFOs. Now, Grant Cameron had said earlier that this was planned months in advance, meaning Grant Cameron knew about this months in advance. The newspaper made it look like we just stumbled on the story. Comes out in Washington Post, Politico, New York Times, all over the place. The gentleman who's running the program, the Black Pressure program, Luis Elizondo, starts going on a press tour, talking to the media. And in one case on CNN, when she asks him, do you think we're being visited? He says, based on my scientific observation, we have nothing in our inventory that can do anything like what these pilots have been seeing. Yes, I think we're being visited. And he continues. And he goes and does lectures to MUFON and all this other stuff. And he makes these arguments, these videos talking about potential alien life in the craft and all this other stuff. It's wild. The pilots themselves start giving interviews. And they start describing what they were seeing. A new article comes out in the New York Times saying that the updated technology that are in the airplanes, these guys have been seeing UFOs all over the place. And one of the weird quirks were, if you were looking directly at it, you may not see it. However, the technology itself may pick it up because of the radar that they're using. Now, some of this had to do with this notion that they may be warping space around the plane and all this other stuff. It's fascinating, weird physics. Further, you find out that the U.S. government has been studying weird physics. Things like electromagnetics, warp drive, invisibility, like gravitation, all sorts of odd and exotic physics that will find itself at commonplace in Star Trek. I shit you not. Another stone drops. 3 videos hit the airways. Go Fast, the Nimitz, and there was one other. The Nimitz video involved a Nimitz ship looking at a craft that kept coming up over and over again, in which case pilots had like 5 minutes to literally study and stare at this craft do things that they've never seen, including outperform their craft. And in one case, this quirk of consciousness where the craft ended up at a place before the pilot even got to the place, meaning before the pilot knew where he was going. Weird and exotic. This hasn't been one, this has been a slew of pilots. This has gotten so much attention because you can imagine that the moment that this video hit the press, and multiple videos hit the press, and the moment that the Washington Post, the New York Times, Politico, all of these media organizations are printing these stories about what these Navy pilots have been seeing, the experiences that these Navy pilots have been having. So what does the Navy do? The Navy is stuck in somewhat of a quagmire. Either all of these pilots are lying and all of these guys are on something, or they're not. And what the Navy did was, we're changing our protocols. We're opening up protocols to allow pilots to explain what they've been seeing for our own edification, our own study. How they're using this information, we have no idea. What information they've been recording, we have no idea. The Navy has said, we're not telling you what we're getting, we're just letting you know that we're changing our protocols. That's called confirmation. One of the major branches of the military has said we're looking into UFOs. They wouldn't say that if it didn't exist. I hope you understand my point. Basic premise. It's real. That's not the conspiracy theory. The conspiracy theory is that it's made up. But start off with the basic premise that these pilots, with an S, the people who've been talking to the press, the Navy itself, that there is in fact something that they are observing, something that they're seeing, something that they're interacting with that is far beyond our own craft in regards to the abilities of our own technology. That's my basic point. Now, the skeptics need to challenge that point. And I gotta be honest, I don't think there's a challenge to that point. The skeptical perspective is, yes, they're seeing something, but there's no way to say that that's a UFO. Fair enough. But what does that mean, though? If you accept my first premise, that the pilots are seeing something. These guys are on major weapons platforms. The U.S. government has been studying UFOs for years, and for whatever reason is now hitting the press. One other point. The videos that were released to the public that the Pentagon eventually denied were not, in fact, they were in fact from the Pentagon. Meaning, IT News found that these the videos that were released were legally released. Meaning, the Pentagon released these videos intentionally and then later denied it. Accept my original premise. They're seeing something. The secondary point, though, it's either us or it's not. And understand what that means. It's either us or it is not us. And both of those are extraordinary. If it is us, think of everything that would have to be true. It would mean that the pilots are observing technology that is so advanced, that is our technology, meaning you had a breakaway civilization of sorts, that you had technology that developed in a way that wasn't exposed to the public, and that these two strands where this technology just kind of went on its own and developed into this kind of high technological, almost from the perspective of the pilot itself, seeming alien, but is in fact us, just with tweaks in our understanding of technology. And to be fair, it's hard to know how far technology would have to go to do exactly what those ships are doing in the way that they're describing. Meaning, for all we know, looking at the world in a particularly different way, or one or two discoveries might be enough to allow for leaps in technology, if that makes sense. But from our perspective, we can't see it. We can't get there. And so it looks like, oh my God, these things look like alien craft. These things are so advanced. They're so far beyond us. I think we're being visited. Now, that would mean that there are two strands. Again, our technology from the standpoint of what we typically know of as the degree of technology, and then this breakaway civilization. That's what that would mean. If the argument is it's us, what these pilots are observing and what these pilots are seeing, this level of technology where they're like, oh my God, this is out of this world. There is no way this is coming from us. If that is indeed us, it would mean that there is a breakaway in regards to technological proficiency. And then the secondary question is, where is this being held? Is this being held within companies? Then the third question, why now? Why does the Pentagon release those videos now? Why does this hit the press now? Why is this so apparent that they want to get the story out into the public itself to see whether or not the public is okay with the information? Because ultimately, those videos were released. They weren't stolen. They hit the press. The people in the pilots, those people were given. Tom DeLonge asked for pilots and asked for people who were involved in it that can back up his story. He got them. They started doing press announcements. There's a lot to be. My point is, there's a lot of stuff to follow if those planes are indeed us. And to some degree, that's more terrifying and weirder. But possible, I suppose. The other thing is, it's not us. And oh my God, at that point. But understand the gravity of what I'm saying here. If you accept the original premise that the pilots are indeed seeing something, and you accept that they're not lying, that what they're seeing is beyond their typical capabilities, then you have to come away with one or two, it's us or not. If it's not, oh my God. If it's not, what is it? Is it interdimensional? Is it from another planet? If it's not us, oh my God. If it is us, oh my God. There's technology that's being hidden from our basic civilization that for some reason is being shoehorned in by exposing this element that was hidden from the public at one point. That's if it's us. I gotta be honest, I don't necessarily buy entirely that it's us. It could be, it's possible. Who knows the technological innovations that have taken place in regards to the government that they're hiding technologies. But I got to be honest, I don't entirely buy it. It's possible that we've been visited for a very, very, very long time. And for whatever reason, there are elements in the government itself, at least based on what some of the reporting is, that's trying to force this to the limelight for reasons. They've been trying to force it to the limelight for a while, but at this point it seems that they have people who are internal and inside that is willing to assist with this particular thing. Hence, the Pentagon releasing the documents, hence the New York Times article, hence Luis Elizondo coming out, hence the Navy pilots coming out, hence the Navy changing its protocols. All of these things are indications that there is a tenor change in regards to the way the government is viewing this issue. The question is, why? The question is why? And that needs to be engaged. Like, whether you believe, okay, this is us, or whether you believe it's not us, there's certain logical things that follow from either one of those. And both of those realities are profound in their implications. Skeptics are losing this argument. Because at this point, the mainstream media has gone with the notion that these pilots are seeing stuff. And unless you think these pilots are delusional, then you're stuck with the original premise. It's either us or it's not. Both of which are profound. Let me see who's here. Let's see. I'm wondering if the real reason they're asking the public to report on sightings is for them to confirm who's been abducted and when. Just a thought. So that's the interesting part. The moment that the government comes out and says, okay, they're aliens. And then all of those people who said, I told you I was abducted, comes into play. And then it becomes, were you hiding this? And if so, how long were you hiding it? And how much do you know? And whether or not they're even telling you the truth in regards to what they're telling you. Meaning, do you honestly believe that these people who scream in the chemical weapons strike in Syria and weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, do you honestly believe that these people are going to give you the lowdown, the truth? And even if they did, how would you know? Like, exopolitics is, like, it's terrifying to some degree. Not so much for what's out there, but more so much human beings themselves. Our political space has Donald Trump as the president of the United States. We have millions of people without health care, despite the fact that Bill Gates by himself could literally end poverty. We fight for that system. We fight for that system. You have troops who are out there saying, I'm fighting for the American system. I'm fighting for people to not have health care. I'm fighting for people to not be able to pay their bills. I'm fighting for Bill Gates to have $100 and something billion in the bank. I'm fighting for, it's like the country and the world decides to allow people to squalor in poverty. That's not a choice. That's not an act of God. That's something that we allow. And we have a political system to enshrine that. Now, am I to believe that the greedy SOBs that are in Congress, the Delaney's of the world, that would burn $20 million of his own money to get into a race to tell other people that they can't have health care, that group of people is going to be honest with me and the rest of the public regarding this subject? I'm not all that much clear on that. And not just not clear on that, because of such, it makes this topic difficult to deal with if you can't trust what the people are saying on the topic. The New York Times story. Like I said, Grant Cameron had that story months in advance before that even came out in the Times. Meaning, what they're reporting on it is, look, to some degree, I appreciate the issue being mainstreamed. And I appreciate that it's not, this kind of loony, woo stuff at that point. So fair enough. I just question the motives behind the spooks that are pushing it along and that are pushing this subject along. And I question why and why now. That's all. As for the abduction stuff, look, maybe. But we're talking about UFO sightings from the standpoint of the Navy, not necessarily sightings from people. So unless they're talking about pilots being abducted, I don't know if it's that way. There are studies that are taking place right now that are not government related into people who are calling themselves and say were abducted or experiences, that type of stuff. If I'm not mistaken, the number one experience that people are having is this kind of light being of sorts. It's like I saw a being in my room and it was a light being. Many times this stuff happens in OBEs. the people don't necessarily realize they're in OBEs, but if you listen to their story, what you find is they're in the middle of an OBE. That doesn't take away from the story. I'm not one of those people who believe that you're, at least not in a firm way, that consciousness is purely isolated within your brain, meaning there's nothing to say that there can't be contact. And what would contact with a species like that look like? I mean, we're in the dark with all of this stuff. This is kind of my point. This topic is, it's hard to know what's real, in which case you kind of just, it makes this topic difficult. I said that way. It makes this topic a little bit difficult. Hence, I don't do every story. Like, the stories I do are the ones that are legitimate, or the ones that I can validate. I can't do stories that I can't validate, especially with the news channel, because the channel has to be able to be able to defend whatever I come up with. Meaning anything that I say, for the most part, I should be able to defend it. And, the abduction stuff, you can't really, it's often individual. Omar